So the 2022 MLB trade deadline has officially come and gone, and we've seen some big-time winners, we saw some big-time losers, and we even saw some teams that you can probably squeeze in between winners and losers. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just get right after it. Now, I guess before we do that, I want to say rest in peace to Vince Scully, the voice of my childhood. The game of baseball would not be the same without him. He was just a kind person, a generational storyteller, and the game of baseball will deeply miss him. Now, the first team that we're going to talk about winners, then we're going to talk about the teams that were in between, and then we're going to talk about the losers. Obviously, the San Diego Padres, they have to be the first team that we talk about. Now, I am using Fangraphs, which is a cool website. It shows all of the transactions. These were all of the trades that the Padres made. So you can see Eric Hosmer, Luke Voit, they were traded to other teams, but they got Brandon Drury, they got Josh Bell, they got Juan Soto. They had to give away their entire farm system to get those guys, but in the Taylor Rogers trade, they also got Josh Hader. So when you're adding Josh Hader, Juan Soto, Josh Bell, and Brandon Drury in a single trade deadline, a lot of people could say that was the best deadline in the history of Major League Baseball, so I'm going to give that to AJ Preller. Although, again, those are a lot of pieces you had to give up, but this is a video about 2022. We're not talking about the future. We're not talking about 2023, 2024. We're talking about how good did a team improve themselves at the deadline. It's as simple as that. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the Yankees. So Joey Gallo and Jordan Montgomery, those are two guys that left, but they replaced them with Harrison Bader. It's going to take some time for us to see his production because he has plantar fasciitis. They got Frankie Montas, Lou Trevino, who honestly was probably acquired because he is very good against the Astros. They got Scott Efferis and Andrew Benintendi. Those are kind of the big names in the Yankee trade deadline, so they got rid of Joey Gallo, so that was kind of addition by subtraction, although Andrew Benintendi is 1 for 17 and striking out a lot in his first few games with the Yankees. But to me, I consider the Yankees to be winners at the deadline. They got rid of some players, they got some key pieces to fill in holes. I think they had a great deadline. And same with the Houston Astros. They really filled all of the holes that they needed. Martin Maldonado, they call him the machete because he hoses people. He is a fantastic defensive catcher, but offensively, he's never going to get the job done. So they picked up Christian Vasquez from the Red Sox. They also acquired Trey Mancini, so he is going to be their first base / DH / left fielder. They can really put him wherever they want, but to me, Will Smith is one of the more important pieces because the Astros bullpen does need lefty help, and they traded away Jake Odorizzi. So with all that being said, they traded away Siri, they traded away Jake Odorizzi, who has been horrible this year. I would say that the Astros had a win deadline, and that's because they don't really have any weaknesses. They're getting back Lance McCullers here soon. Maybe they call up Whitley or their other guy. I can't remember his name right now. Is it Hunter Brown? It's something like that. But the Astros, they didn't need a lot of help like the Dodgers, who we are going to talk about in today's video, but that will come later. So I was kind of going back and forth on whether or not I should put the Braves in winners or the in-between, because let's take a look at what they did. They acquired Robbie Grossman, Jake Odorizzi, and Raisel Iglesias. They also reacquired Eri Adrianza. I don't know if I said his name right. I always botch that, but those are some solid pieces. Iglesias, he's getting paid a ton of money, so that helps out the Angels, who we will talk about as well. So he is a pretty big piece to go behind Kenley Jansen, and he's going to fit in between guys like AJ Minter and Tyler Matzek. I don't know if Tyler Matzek is healthy right now. Jake Odorizzi, maybe they can fix him, but Robbie Grossman, he is going to be fantastic in left field against left-handed pitchers. Eddie Rosario, I expect him to be in there versus righties, but Robbie, he's almost hitting 350 or almost 370 against lefties, so that to me is a big-time upgrade, and I feel like he's going to help for a team that doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. I think the Braves and the Astros can kind of compare each other to each other because they don't have a lot of holes that they needed to fill. Now, the Phillies, they're quite the opposite. They had a ton of holes to fill because, one, they didn't really do the best job at acquiring players that were going to be projecting as productive players in 2022. I didn't really think that Nick Castellanos was going to be as good. Now, I didn't think that he was going to be bad, but he has been the definition of bad this year. But let's talk about what they did. They acquired David Robertson, who was a former Philly, but he is going to be a huge pickup for the Phillies because their back end of the bullpen has been a little bit shaky. Sir Anthony Dominguez has been better than Knievel and Brad Hand, but I expect David Robertson to be pretty good in that closing role. Noah Syndergaard, he is making a lot of money, so they are picking that up. The Angels, the only thing that they really did is they offloaded contracts, but we'll get to them in just a moment. Mickey Moniak is going to the Angels, and kind of in the same sentence, Brandon Marsh of the Angels is going back to the Phillies. Now, they weren't traded for each other. Brandon Marsh came on over, I believe, in the Logan Hop trade, or Logan O'Hop, I should say that's his name, and then Mickey Moniak came in the Thor trade. So to me, I really feel like the Phillies improved. They also got Edmundo Sosa. They're taking a flyer on this guy. He was amazing in 2021. He has regressed severely in 2022, but Brandon Marsh, he started off the season on fire, but then with injury, the Angels kind of didn't have protection for him, so the opposing pitchers exposed him. He's a rookie. I kind of expected that. Mickey Moniak, he's not really a true major league player. He's kind of a 4A guy. Noah Syndergaard and David Robertson, those pieces are going to help, so I do give the Phillies a winner label for the 2022 trade deadline. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the Mariners, who are putting the spanking on the Yankees right now, and the only thing that I have to say, Luis Castillo. I really believe that he is going to be a workhorse for the Mariners, and simply because Luis Castillo turns the Mariners from a pretty good team into an elite team, that's why I'm giving them a winner label. I know they had to give away Noelvi Marte and Edwin Arroyo. A lot of those guys have been really good in the minors this year, but when you get Luis Castillo, you're going to have to give away some of your top prospects. It was a huge haul, but they also acquired Kurt Casale. They got Jake Lamb. They got Matthew Boyd, who is injured right now, but he's decent when he can be. So the Mariners, they're winners in my book. So we have two more winners to talk about. The Minnesota Twins had one of the more underrated deadlines that I can remember because their biggest need right now is bullpen, and they got Michael Fulmer, who has been a buzzsaw this year. Speaking of buzzsaws, they got Jorge Lopez and Tyler Mahle. Tyler Mahle is one of the more underrated players in Major League Baseball, and Jorge Lopez, who failed as a starter, has really saved his career as a back-end guy, whether he's going to be the closer or whether he's going to be setting things up for Michael Fulmer. I don't expect that because Jorge Lopez has been an all-star closer this year. So when you add Michael Fulmer to the mix, you add Jorge Lopez, that shores up the bullpen almost overnight, and Tyler Mahle is going to be a fantastic 2 or 3 starter behind Sonny Gray and Joe Ryan. So the Twins, they probably will run away with this division because the Tigers didn't get better, the White Sox didn't get better, the Guardians did not get better at all. We'll talk about them as well. But I guess the final winner from the deadline, I'm going to give it to the Cardinals. I wanted to put them in the in-between category, but they got Jordan Montgomery, who has been pretty solid. They also got Jose Quintana, who at 33 years old is trying to figure out how to pitch, and he has been successful at that. And when I say trying to figure out how to pitch, I mean like his old self, because he was really good with the White Sox back in the day. He goes to the Cubs, he wasn't very good, but this year he has had a career resurgence. They also picked up Chris Stratton. So again, not the best trade deadline in the world, but they did pick up 2 starting pitchers to help out Adam Wainwright and the other guys that they have in that rotation with Miles Michaelis and Dakota Hudson. So to me, I will say the Cardinals, they won the deadline, but just barely. So the in-between teams we're going to talk about kind of quickly. The Rays, they picked up Jose Siri after releasing Brett Phillips, and then they also picked up David Peralta from the A's. So because they got David Peralta, because they got Jose Siri and Garrett Cleavinger, I mean, those aren't the worst players in the world, but they're also not the best. I do think that they are better. Just it wasn't enough for me to be wowed by it, so they go in the in-between. They are better, but maybe by a smidge. Moving on over to the Reds. Now, I will say the Reds came into the season as a complete embarrassment, and they're still not very good. However, the Reds and the Nationals kind of had the same deadline, trading away their star players for prospects, but the Reds and the Nationals are in completely different places, so I'll get to that. I think the Reds have a different game plan, so that's why they are getting a W, not a full winner for me, because I think they're in between. They didn't get any superstars aside from Noelvi Marte. I feel like he's going to be a monster when he gets called up, but when you trade Luis Castillo, that's going to hurt you. Tommy Pham, he wasn't really doing much, so I guess they got him off the books, but to me, losing Tyler Mahle and Luis Castillo, I can't give them a winner, but because they picked up a lot of pieces, I will give them an in-between. They won, but they also lost all at the same time. Another team that won and lost all at the same time, the Los Angeles Angels, but I like to call them the Anaheim Angels. So they acquired Jesse Chavez, which is neat. They acquired Tucker Davidson and Mickey Moniak, but they traded away Brandon Marsh for Logan O'Hop. Logan O'Hop has been a monster, so he is going to be their number 1 prospect already. He has been inserted. He is there. That is a fact. So they traded away Noah Syndergaard, Raisel Iglesias, and Brandon Marsh. And really, Brandon Marsh is not making a lot of money, but these 2 guys were, I mean, they're making some fat stacks. So getting them off the books going into 2023, that frees up a lot of money. Hopefully, Ohtani is going to get some help and Mike Trout comes back healthy, because the rest of the season for the Los Angeles Angels, it is looking really rough, but because they kind of won by getting free money, and they also lost because they traded away Brandon Marsh, they gave up on him, I think, a little bit too quick. I don't know if I like that, but getting Logan O'Hop, that's a W. So they're in between for me. The Dodgers, I mean, I'm giving them an in-between simply because they didn't need to make any moves, and I don't like the fact that they traded away Mitch White, but they traded Mitch White. They got Joey Gallo, who I think is going to have a better second half with the Dodgers. They'll fix him somehow, and yeah, that's really all that we're going to talk about. They traded Clayton Beeter to the Yankees. They traded away a couple different players, but I will say getting Chris Martin for the bullpen, that is a big-time move, so they get a neutral from your boy Fuzzy. All right, so we have two more teams to talk about for the in-betweens. We have the Toronto Blue Jays as well as the New York Mets, so we'll talk about the Mets right after that. So Anthony Bass, that is probably the biggest move. I know that Whit Merrifield was also traded to the Blue Jays, but Whit Merrifield is kind of stinky, although maybe being on a winning team will give him a slight chip on the shoulder and make him feel like he wants to have a better second half. Who knows, that could happen. Anthony Bass and Zach Pop, they are going to shore up that bullpen, which is nice. Now, they also got Mitch White from the Dodgers, so I'm not sure if he's going to be in the bullpen as a long reliever or if he's going to be in that rotation. But to me, honestly, now that I'm looking at this, I'm kind of swaying towards putting the Jays in the winning category, although they did swing and miss on a ton of different players. So because of that, yeah, they go in the in-between for me because Whit Merrifield, he's a former star. I don't think he's good anymore. Anthony Bass is solid, but he's 34 years old. Pop is all right. And then Mitch White, he's good, but I don't know what to expect from him. So they go in the in-between. And last but not least, the Mets, kind of the same story as the Blue Jays. They did do something at least. They picked up Michael Givens, who has been good this year, Darren Ruff. They gave away J.D. Davis, so they finally moved off of him. They picked up Daniel Vogelbach, and they acquired Tyler Naquin. So they did add to their team, but they're all kind of pieces that were eh. The only thing that I can say is I thought the same thing about Jock Peterson and Eddie Rosario at the deadline for the Atlanta Braves last year, and then they became postseason legends. So maybe Tyler Naquin is going to be a postseason legend, and Darren Ruff is going to be able to get on base like he did the last few years because he was elite at doing that. He had a 130 OPS plus over the last few seasons before kind of tailing off this year. He is 35 years old, but the Mets and the Blue Jays, they kind of had the same deadline where they traded for some players that will help, but I was expecting more, so I can't give them a full winner. And now the moment that you've all been waiting for. Again, I have to remind you guys, this trade deadline video is about 2022, not about the future, so I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. The Nationals, I knew that they weren't going to be good, but I thought they were going to be a little bit better than they were, so they failed at that, and they optioned Luke Voit to AAA. They're not even using Luke Voit after trading for him, so that is weird. I mean, Josh Bell is going to the Padres with Juan Soto. They did pick up a haul for Juan Soto and Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams, but I think they also assigned CJ Abrams to AAA as well, so nothing they're doing is making sense to me at the moment. So because of all of that, they are getting a F for 2022, but for 2023 and beyond, you could say that they got a B+ to an A- because CJ Abrams and Robert Hassel, Mackenzie Gore, and James Wood, that is a haul. But again, they're prospects, or the majority of them are, so we still have to wait to see if they're going to pan out. So the Nationals, I mean, that's an easy one for me, at least in my opinion. The Red Sox, they're getting a pretty much an F if it was a grade. They're getting a loser label from me because they did get Eric Hosmer. I just don't understand what they were doing. So they got Eric Hosmer, Tommy Pham, but they traded away Jake Diekman and Christian Vasquez. I don't know what the Boston Red Sox are doing, and a lot of Red Sox fans are just as confused and flabbergasted on Twitter, so I'm kind of with you guys. I don't know what you're doing, so because of that, because there's no plan in place, you get a loser label from me. The White Sox, you should be absolutely embarrassed. And if you're a fan of the White Sox, I just kind of want to apologize for you. So you, what are we doing? You acquired Reese McGuire, then you traded him away for Jake Diekman. Jake Diekman, I think he's nasty, but at 35 years old, the control is really starting to be bad. Now, his control has never been elite. Don't get it twisted, but now it seems like it is way worse than it was before. So Jake Diekman is really the only noticeable player that you acquired at the deadline. You are getting a F from me. So I'm just going to call the losers an F grade. Let's just go ahead and make it as simple as that. So the Brewers, they really tried to get some bullpen depth by trading away Josh Hader. Now, they did get Taylor Rogers. They also got Trevor Rosenthal and Matt Bush. Both of those guys, they throw really hard, so maybe they are just trying to fine-tune their mechanics and get them to throw more strikes. I guess that's going to be something that they work on. I mean, you can say the same for Dinelson Lamet. Esteury Ruiz has made his debut already, so maybe he gets called up in the next few days for the Brewers and he makes an impact. But considering they gave away Josh Hader and Devin Williams is not too happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and say that the Brewers, their bullpen might be about as good as efficient as it was when Josh Hader was on the squad, but because they didn't get any offensive help, which is really what they need need, I'm not going to give them a winning or an A grade. I'm going to give them not an F per se, but they probably get a C minus, maybe a D plus from me. They kind of just stay the exact same. The Guardians, absolutely atrocious. As you can see, the last transaction was on July 18th, so nothing was done. And that's why they get an F from me. Now, maybe the status quo is fine with them. They are content with the players that they have. And the prospects that are going to be called up in the next few days, aka Tyler Freeman, maybe we get some other pieces getting called up like Gavin Williams or some other young pitchers. But for right now, it's just not very fun being a Guardians fan. Okay, let me rephrase that. It's fun being a Guardians fan because the team is very young and they're playing well. But when it comes to trades and the offseason, we only signed one dude in the offseason. It was Luke Maile, who is a backup catcher. I mean, again, it's not fun. So let's talk about the Giants. So they traded away Matthew Boyd, Darren Ruff. You have Trevor Rosenthal going to another team, but they did get JD Davis. The reason why I'm giving them a loser grade essentially is because they still have Jock Peterson. They still have Carlos Rodon. They are not going to compete with those guys. So I would have moved them 100%, get them off the books going into 2023. They still have pieces in that farm system like Marco Luciano, Elliott, Ramos. They have pieces in place to be good in the next season. But if they could have freed up some money in the process, that probably would have been a better idea. And Carlos Rodon has been so good this year that he could have fetched a big time haul. And same with Jock Peterson. Both of those guys were all-stars, but the Giants, they think that they can compete with the Padres and the Dodgers, who are super teams. But if they're not competing with them, they have a wild card push, which is not going to happen. So that is my opinion on the Giants. They're in the loser category. And last but not least, I can't believe the Orioles pretty much folded at the deadline. They've been playing so well, but I guess it makes sense. It almost makes me want to put them in the in-between because we knew the Orioles weren't going to be good. They're playing above expectations because Adley Rutschman has kind of changed the trajectory of that franchise just with his attitude and his play. He hasn't been the best hitter, but his defense and his extra base prowess has been pretty solid. They traded away Jorge Lopez. They traded away Trey Mancini. Now, they did get Seth Johnson, who I'm very high on. Also, Chase McDermott is pretty good. So they got some pitching depth for the future. But again, because we're talking about 2022, you are not a better team without Jorge Lopez and Trey Mancini. So for me, I'm sorry, Orioles fans, you get a loser label from me. Well, everyone, that is going to do it for today's breakdown of the 2022 MLB trade deadline. I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you agree or disagree with any of my picks, please let me know in the comments. I would really appreciate some debate. I'm always down for that. But again, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe, do all that crazy YouTube stuff, and I'll catch you on the next one. And one more time, rest in peace, Vince Scully.